Can we please give Luke a warm Cardiff welcome, please?
Good evening. Are we all ready? Yeah. Are we all prepared? Not quite so many people prepared, but a few who are ready. When I say ready, what am I saying ready for? Are we ready to take property and conceive of that as a business that delivers against what it is we want to deliver? Whatever those objectives may well be in our personal lives. For many, property is something we are familiar with, but it's a place we live. We may have been an accidental landlord at some point in time, but it's never really something we think of as a business. What I'm going to try and do today is compress approximately 33 years of business experience into 24.2 minutes to articulate some tips, some techniques, some things that I have learnt, largely by making the mistakes, by the way, that might help you as you start to frame property as a property business. So first question I need to ask is, how many of you here actually own investment property today? So a goodly number. So if we can then just see the hands who do not own investment property today. A few. I'm assuming that you're here because that is what you want to accomplish. Right, so we've got a mix of old hands. I would classify myself as one of those because I'm old. We also have some folk here who are new and I'm guessing wanting to look and understand. So what I'm going to try and do is give you a sense not only of the opportunities and how we might look at property as a business, but also share my journey and the journey of my lovely wife here, who, by the way, we weren't sunburnt when this photograph was taken. It is, in fact, the projector. It looks perfectly fine here. So it may well be that she gets to see this, and I don't think she'll be terribly pleased. Okay, so the business that Bricks built. Who's familiar with the house that Jack built? Okay, well, there's no connection whatsoever in the fact that the words seem to work. However, the words below, top tips, tools and techniques that will help you turn your property into a property business is the journey we're about to go on now. It is not unreasonable for me to at least at the beginning give you an idea of perhaps why what I'm about to tell you might be deemed reasonably credible. It also will give you an indication of why some people think I'm actually certifiably insane. Because in 33 years, I have started 7 businesses from nothing. I've eventually created 500 jobs there or thereabouts. So these businesses were grown. Some of those became reasonable sized businesses. On 3 continents, I've spent an awful lot of time traveling and on planes. I've generated 50 million in revenues from ideas that were merely ideas focused on, that doesn't work terribly well, maybe there's a better way, let's find it. Proving that there was in fact a better way, finding a way to build whatever it was we built, building it, securing a customer, and then building a customer base and a profitable business off the back of that. I've raised £15 million in venture capital. So for me, asking for money is really not an issue. I have no difficulty whatsoever if I have what I believe is an investable proposition in inviting others to come share, join in my success as a result, which is coincidentally one of the things that we seek to try and do with property. Okay, so been around, done a little bit, and I'm going to try and share some of that experience with you today. When I started my property journey, it was actually largely by accident. I sold my last company 2.5 years or so ago. Worked actually for that company is quite common if you build a business and then you sell it. We sold it for about $11.5 million, by the way, if you want to give an idea of what the scale of that particular business was. Not huge, but it wasn't too bad. We sold it to an organization that today has a turnover of $26 billion per annum and employs 200,000 people. So what's that? About 2/3 the entire population of Swansea in one company. Okay. Now, I didn't get on with that because actually my preference is for smaller, more nimble startups. So I elected to leave that particular organization and start again. Now, I started again having promised my wife 2 weeks prior that I would not do another startup. So she wasn't terribly pleased with me. She was less pleased when I actually said, and I would love it if you would come and work and join me in this particular startup. She was even less pleased when I decided that educating myself was a really important part of building a property business, that I brought her back from a 4-week retreat in Spain early to spend 3 days in a hotel in Birmingham. She has not forgiven me, I don't think. However, what we did was we learnt an awful lot about property and have done over the course of the last year. So I'm a masterminder. I chose to actively educate myself and to commit the funds necessary to do that. We can talk later if you're interested in why, but I did that. And I did that and now have applied my business knowledge and business expertise to what it is we've effectively created. But millennials, we believe there was an opportunity in the marketplace because I have 4 children. So not only being certifiably insane because I have 7 business startups behind me, I also have 4 children, 18, 20, 25 and 27. So you may all recognise that as being pretty much right smack in the middle of the generation we refer to today as millennials. Now what's very interesting about them is their attitude to property. So what has really got me started, and a point will emerge in a short while that is actually, to my mind, critically important, is understanding the market I was seeking to serve by listening and being very, very clear to me that there were some challenges, some problems that were not being met by the product or services that were in the market today. So I said earlier, my 6 prior startups all started because I was listening and heard, this doesn't work well, there has to be a better way. To my mind, very true in the world of property. Now, I know you would all have come today to look at strategies and mortgaging and finance and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to do one thing which might be heretical, it might not be a good idea with several of the more senior masterminders in the room. For one moment, suspend all the technical knowledge about property and let's go in a slightly different direction because that's what I chose to do, which was to start understanding the market I was seeking to serve. Not only in terms of numbers and composition and size, but also what that market deemed it might need. So I spoke to people. I spoke to individuals who would ultimately eventually become my customer. Now, I did not say tenant. Very deliberate. We'll come back to that in a short while. But my customer. What I concluded was there is a very significant shortage of quality property that meets the needs of today's young professional. The Instagram generation, generation rent, whatever name we might give to them. Now, it depends entirely upon how you define need and you interrogate and understand your market as whether you would agree with me or not. Because you could say, well, no, it's bricks, it's mortar, it's rooms. They can rent a room. What's the issue? What's the problem? The issue is they don't want to do that. They want a different offering. They want something that meets a different set of needs. And it's only by getting under the skin of the problem we seek to solve and the customer we intend to serve that we can truly start to be thinking about building a business. And that actually is my first key pointer and tip. Forget all the books you've read for one moment about property. It isn't about properties. It's about solving a problem for someone who is prepared to give you a check to have that problem solved. Now, that is not the way most folk, and I don't say this in a pejorative way at all, think in the world of property. But if what you can do is start to reframe the way you think, to focus more on who you are serving and why, what I can tell you is you will make more money. The rents you will generate will be higher than the competing alternatives. The voids, which we all inevitably have to contemplate suffering, will be shorter or possibly non-existent. Your operating costs will be lower. Now, those of you, anyone here from the world of finance? Any accountants? Anyone who's good at maths? Higher rent, lower cost, negligible void equals better financial performance. So I'm not going to stand here today and say, this is all wonderful stuff that you need to contemplate, because it is. It fundamentally ends up with a better financial performance. I'm assuming, whether you want a Maserati or a Lamborghini or a Porsche or a big house, the 1.3 million house with a swimming pool, or something else, whatever your life goals are, that more money and making more money would be a good thing. Yes? Yeah. So this is our problem to solve. And what does that do? What does that do for us? Actually, what it does is it gives us some clarity of purpose. It gives us the opportunity, in fact, to eliminate things that might distract us from our primary objective, serving this particular customer or customer group. Now, I appreciate for some folk will be going, yeah, perhaps entrepreneurs, business owners who have different types of business. Many from the world of property, which is my experience so far, will be going, actually, that's an unusual way to be thinking in the context of property. We tend to think about, are we doing HMOs, or we think about our strategies, and nowhere in that discussion about strategy do we say, hang on a minute, who's the customer? What do they want? What do they need? What do they want to buy? And that's my first critical point for you today, is try and reframe the way you think to put yourselves in the shoes of the customers you serve and understand the problems that you solve for those customers. Do that, you will make more money. And by the way, the backdrops, the images I'm showing you are real properties. They are Higgy House properties, because we chose, in responding to the needs we saw, to address a design-led, Instagram-friendly, because that's a big deal for the generation that we seek to have as our customer, comfortable, community-oriented, art-filled product. Why? Because that's what we were told they wanted. The consequence of that, there isn't much of this about. For me, great. Because it not only does it attract attention, but it also creates a point of difference in a market. And that is another key tip, trick. If you want to make superior profits in your business, you need to determine what it is that makes you fundamentally different from the competitive alternatives. Point of difference, differentiation, call it what you will. If your product is the same as everyone else's product, what do you think is going to happen? Over time, you are forced to lower prices because someone will go and lower a price. When that happens, if you are not differentiated and you are not properly serving or addressing the needs of the customer you want to serve, guess what? You have no choice but to follow everyone down. If you have lower revenues that are falling and higher operating costs, is that a good place in business terms to be? No, it's not. Okay? So, customers, not tenants. Could I ask you all to leave here and at least for a week not use the T word? They're not tenants. We don't have HMOs. What do we have? We have homes. We have places that people live where dreams are made and dreams are dashed, where arguments happen. Well, people live their lives. They do the things they do. We're all in that same boat, right? We are creating environments for people to do exactly that, not HMOs. It'd be very interesting, wouldn't it, if you actually went out and spoke to, let's say you were particularly interested in the same market I am, younger individuals and addressing the same problem, and you said, so about this HMO thing, I can guarantee you that 99.9% of the individuals you speak to would go, what? They have no idea what an HMO is. It makes sense for us, of course, because we need to worry about licensing, we need to worry about planning commission, a whole host of other things, but HMO means nothing. In other words, even the language you use needs to be adjusted to address the market you serve if you want to run a business that produces superior financial performance, okay? So customers, not tenants. Now, I'm not going to read some of the detail, but some of the words that I'm going to share that are on these slides actually are quite important, because as you start to think about the market you serve, what you then need to do is to think about the product you're going to supply. Again, I'm sure some of you are sitting going, how is a room a product? Well, I'll tell you, absolutely it is a product, because it's not a room. It's a feeling. It's the whole environment. When someone walks through the door, the response you want is, this feels great. If you can accomplish that, then you've thought enough about what your customer needs, and you've delivered that in a way that allows them to respond positively to your product. Okay. Now, I appreciate, again, thinking about product, that's an unusual thing for us to do. That's what I would absolutely encourage you to do. What you then need to do is to bring your product to life. Now, in our world, our product translates into 3 applications. Co-living, we refer to co-living. We're not allowed, no one in our world is allowed to use the HMO term. And that's in fact because actually there are negative associations and connotations with the term HMO. That's rather unfortunate. But actually it's more to do with the fact that actually in our market, our customer doesn't understand what we're talking about. Co-living, better, more likely. It's more descriptive of what it is we're effectively asking them to do, right? So co-living. I'm not going to go into these into detail, as we can talk about that afterwards if you like. But our world and the world I'm interested in is co-living, shared accommodation that is design-oriented, design-led for young professionals. That feels great. Boutique hotels and serviced accommodation. So we in fact are moving very much more towards property that we deliver and execute as hospitality. And arguably you can say, well, therefore we're in the hotel business, we're not really in the property business, but that's another debate, another discussion. But that's how we've chosen to manifest that. Now, a trick. One of the things that I would like very much for you to begin to do is imagine in your head what it is you want to create, and imagine your customer and how you're going to deliver what it is you're going to deliver for them. People talk about visualization, right? And everyone goes, oh, what does that mean? Doesn't Usain Bolt do that when he's running around and he doesn't actually left the thing? Isn't that what athletes do? Well, yes, it is. But there's a good reason athletes do it, because it leads to superior performance. In this context, visualization really means, can you get a picture in your head that you can translate into words that describes the problem you're seeking to solve, who you're seeking to solve it for, so that you could quite simply describe that to a friend who has nothing to do with property. An exercise that you might like to do is to sit down for 5 to 10 minutes and say, can you, in a sentence or two, describe the problem you're seeking to solve for the customer you're seeking to serve, and then describe your solution in a way that is pictorial, brings it to life. Because if you can do that, and you can do that consistently, and you can do that to anyone who asks, what is it you do? You're beginning to think more like a marketer, more like a business person who is seeking to solve a problem, serve customers, and do so profitably. In other words, you're beginning the transition from landlord to entrepreneur, or landlord to business person, because ultimately it's all about the way you are thinking that will make that fundamental difference. So visualization, so the way we seek to do that is to bring our product to life. We've got the 3 C's, we refer to them. The first is a part of our philosophy, which is comfort. So an important part of the Higgy House model is we want the interiors of our product to be supremely comfortable. We want we use products and services from artisans. One of the things we said right there, it says no IKEA. And I don't have a problem with IKEA. Well, except I have a problem with shopping in IKEA. That's probably the worst shopping experience known to man. However, I have no problem with IKEA product. What I do have a problem with is the fact that what that leads to is lazy thinking in terms of the markets we seek to serve. We say, oh, just go IKEA. It's cheap, it works great. Okay, you're not thinking. It may be entirely appropriate for the market you serve. So I'm not suggesting it's bad. I'm just saying, first, we need to think about what it is we are seeking to do, who we are doing it for, and then work. Now, in my market, there is almost an element of anti-commercial, anti-capital. So why am I supporting artisans? Why am I supporting small traders? Why am I supporting craftspeople? And why am I making a point about telling people? Because that is what my market tells me they want to hear. So in terms of describing and visualizing for our customer what it is we do, we start by creating descriptions of things that are a little bit more emotional and a little bit more evocative of what the product we're trying to create. So in this case, our philosophy. That's part one. Second is community. What a lot of youngsters want today is the ability to connect with like-minded individuals. Now, living in an environment. Now, some would argue sometimes they're forced to live in these settings for economic terms. Actually, many of the youngsters we talk to, it's not a question of force, it's a question of choice. They want to hang out with a bunch of others who have similar views, similar worldviews, to share time, share experiences with. Now, that's not the same as bunging a bunch of people into a house who will happen to use the same corridor. Community is all about how you create the environment that allows for that sense of like-minded folk coming together. In other words, we think even in design terms, so many of us will be looking at, say, the images, and you may or may not like our design, but it is our design. It's designed very specific for our target market. But our design goes fundamentally deeper than it looks nice, and we're using stuff and product from artisans. It's how does the space work? How does it flow? How will people move in and around the space? In other words, when you start thinking about design, you really do need to think deeply about the design of your property. Now, all this for many will be going, oh God, this property stuff's doing my head in. You mean I have to think about that as well? Well, what I'm suggesting is if you think about this stuff and it comes back to a problem to solve, a customer to serve, a solution to deliver at a profit, then absolutely, yeah, of course you do. Because that's what you do when you're in business. If you want to grow your business and make your business successful. Okay, so community is important to us because we are told by the target market we serve that that's something they want that they don't get from what's in the market today. And then finally for us, what we refer to as culture, the third C, we all love beautiful objects around us, in the main. So what we're seeking to do is to thread artworks, inspirational words, interesting objects through the very fabric of the buildings that we create. Why? Because it helps the way you feel about the space and you interact with the space. Okay? Now I appreciate if I made this, oh, this also sounds too difficult. I just want to buy an HMO and stuff it full of tenants. You can do that. Plenty of people are doing that. I'm just suggesting that as the world evolves, competition increases, which it is, more investors invest in the type of product that you might want to create, you need to differentiate. To differentiate, you're going to have to start thinking at least along these sorts of lines. I mean, it doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about fancy or high end because your market could be a different market, but thinking about the product you serve and how you articulate it. So visualization. In other words, how do you describe in evocative and exciting terms what it is you do? And I appreciate sometimes when we're talking about bricks and mortar and a big lump of property, that's quite a hard thing to do. But it's worth spending the time to think about how you accomplish that because it will lead to improve financial performance. Now, so visualization, so clarity of purpose. Who is it we are serving? Why are we serving those people? What do we expect to deliver? And what do we expect as a financial result or return? Those are critical questions that mark you out as a business person, not a landlord. Who here has targets? John has targets, Joe has targets, Matt has targets, Tom has targets, a few have targets. If you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going, how do you think you're going to get there? It is critical to start with a destination. Where am I trying to get to? Now, in business terms, that's usually financial, but it needn't be. It could also be softer and more ephemeral than that. But let's assume that you have some numbers you want to hit. Who has numbers they want to hit? Okay, so you do have targets. But you're not thinking necessarily about targets. We have numbers we want to hit. Numbers are measurable. Now, whether it's 100,000 in income, 50,000 in income, 200,000 in net cash flow, 2 million of property, whatever it is, a number will help. On its own, however, it will lead to nothing. Shall I tell you why? What's missing if you just have a number? It's got to be measurable, it's got to be date bound. We all know if we say, I'm going to lose a stone, what will happen?
You'll do it tomorrow.
If you say, I am going to lose a stone by the 31st of March 2018, you still may not do it, by the way. But you start to reframe. yeah, you get a bit more focused, okay? So these are simple things I appreciate, but say I built many businesses, and these are the things that consistently, thinking about the target market, the customer you serve, making sure that you have a vision for what it is you want to create that you can describe to your target market, having some targets that are date bound. Now, mine are a bit lofty. 1,000 rooms and 200,000 per month in net cash flow, okay? I have a very expensive family. No, I'm kidding. Actually, it's a very simple reason. I've gotten to the stage in my life, in my business career, where I've done okay. I don't need to worry so much about money anymore. And so I want to give some stuff back. And I have a simple philosophy, which is the more I can make, the more I can give. Well, that's not to you in this room, by the way. Folk who are perhaps a little more needy. But that's what is driving us. It needn't drive you, but it is driving us. So 1,000 rooms, £200,000 per month. By the 31st of March 2025, we're on a mission. We are now driven from that goal to determining from where we are today how we are going to translate the plan into action that achieves our objectives. If you don't have a target and it's not time, or there's no time in it, guess what? You'll meander. You end up going backwards. There's no basis for you making a real pointed effort to achieve something. Now, this is not for everyone, right? This is absolutely not for everyone, and I'm not suggesting it is for everyone. You need to think long and hard about whether travelling this road and creating and building a business out of property is really what you want to accomplish. But if you do, these are the things you're going to need to contemplate. And then finally, no one gets anywhere without being sharply focused on what it is you want to accomplish. That's my final, I suppose, tip or point. In our case, you might say, hang on a minute, you're investing in Swansea, you're investing in Bristol. Yes, what Bristol? Well, we are. But in Bristol, we have service accommodation. In Swansea, we have co-living. So I have multiple teams, multiple streams. So I come from a world where I'm used to managing multiple businesses with different profiles. And so that's effectively how they are separated. But in each case, we are sharply focused on achieving a certain set of objectives in a given time scale. So, in summary, what are my top tips for turning a property into a property business? Well, be clear about your purpose. Who are you seeking to serve? What problem are you seeking to solve? How are you going about addressing that problem? Those are critical questions which you need to be constantly asking yourself. 2, bring to life what it is you intend to create. And it can be as simple as a single sentence that describes the benefit that your solution delivers to the customer. Simple as that. That's all it needs to be. So when talking about visualization, oh yeah, this guy had vision. Sounds like a grand thing. No, we need to break it back down and say, no, all it needs is, I just want to describe really clearly what it is I do and what it is my stuff does for my customer. Okay, so that's the second. 3rd, measurable objectives. So if you do nothing else from today, after this session, but leave and get a piece of paper and say, okay, this is my customer, this is what they look like. This is my solution, this is my product and why it's better than the competitive alternatives, and here are my goals for the next 12 months in financial terms. You're well on your way, provided you go execute it, of course, you're well on your way to beginning the transition from landlord to entrepreneur, landlord to business person, property to property business. Finally, absolute ruthless determination and sharpness of focus to achieve whatever objective it is you have set for yourself. It is a bumpy road. Property is a bumpy road. Business is a bumpy road. Life is a bumpy road. There are going to be all manner of folk trying to take you off and away from what it is you're seeking to do. Those who are successful are those who can stay focused, are clear about what they want to accomplish, clear about how they're going to accomplish it, and they get on and do it. That and accomplish that, you are now beginning to be and become the business person, the entrepreneur. Whether you wanted to create wealth or just a different lifestyle for yourself is a moot point. I would actively encourage you to reframe the way you think and you arrive as a landlord or a property investor, leave as a business person and entrepreneur who's actually going to turn their property into a property business. Okay, Any questions? One.
With your co-living properties,
Mhm.
Obviously your communal areas are, going to be very nice and very branded. What about the actual bedrooms when the tenants move in? Do they use their own furniture?
Absolutely not. Okay. It's a matter of choice, isn't it? Some would, some won't. And it's a question of determining what it is they want. We're assuming, however, that most don't want to cart furniture around with them. Our customers typically are the younger, haven't accumulated a bunch of stuff. As a consequence, they don't really want to carry stuff around with them, so want to move in with their, with their bag. Yes, Alex.
Leading on from that question, obviously they always talk about dressing your rooms, like when you put up pictures and stuff. So how much of that room is dress, and how much would you take out of that when the tenant?
That's a real room.
Or is that as is?
Every image you've seen today is a real room.
As is when they move in.
That's a real room. Now, what I'm showing you. These rooms I've shown you today are run as serviced accommodation.
Yeah.
But before we go, well, that's different. No, it isn't. We think about product and platform. So when we talk about what's in the room and how it looks and how it feels, the only difference, to my mind, between a high-end, design-led, community-oriented co-living and serviced accommodation is one, you have a contract that allows you to stay there for 6 months or more. The other, you can stay for a night. That's it. There's no difference. But because we're in property, we manifest differences when in fact there aren't. Similarly, a boutique hotel is, whereas serviced accommodation would typically be the entire place, so you can have a kitchen and bathrooms. A boutique hotel is the same with their current incarnation without the kitchen, you could argue. In other words, it's a platform. Now, you will value engineer because back to this business, we'll make profit. So would you necessarily put the same mattress in co-living house as you would in a super high-end boutique hotel? I would argue possibly not. But that doesn't mean to say you put a rubbish mattress in one and a good mattress in the other. What you do is you just value engineer. In other words, you look at alternates and substitutes that allow you to create your product. And I say that's a different way, I appreciate it's a different way of thinking about it, but that's how we think about it. So Swansea, I appreciate, I've probably just sworn, I understand that, being in Cardiff as we are. Okay. Hanover Street, Higgy House at Hanover. There's a bunch of builders in there right now creating the first one of these in Swansea, and it will look like that, only funkier. Okay? Yeah.
Do your customers in your co-living demand en suites?
We put en suites. Ours is so 5. The Hanover project is 5 bedrooms, 5 en suites. The next project we've got coming is 10 bedrooms, 10 en suites. Yeah. So and there's 2 reasons for that. One, actually, because we believe that's what our customer demands. It's also a way to differentiate your offering, generate incrementally higher rents, but it also helps us with our commercial valuations. So there is a financial strategy at play too, which is related to en suites.
Sorry, just time for one more question.
Okay, one more. Alex, you've had one, sorry. I will be around afterwards.
Okay,
Peter.
in actual costs and benefits, what do you think is the return you're getting in terms of premium by being a different sort of class compared to the average? And then also, what's the next step in terms of your return on investment? Where do you think that?
Well, I'll give you an example. So we are right now generating £1,000 per month net per room. Net per room in Bristol. This is my service accommodation, so it's not co-living. But my point, but this is 3 rooms with a shared bathroom in a shared house. Okay. Yes, £1,000 a month net per room. 80% plus occupancy, £1,000 a month net. Right? We have countless 5-star reviews because people's expectations are even when they come.
But in terms of cost and benefits, how does that stand with regards to the investment you did in
114% ROI.
114.
Yeah. And by the way, that was our first product. It was done as a test product, I was fully prepared to have 0% ROI because it was an investment in product development.
And it's
Turns out we've got 114%, doing a little bit better than we'd anticipated. Yeah, so some of these things we've yet to truly establish, but we will, and we'll publish some of the numbers so others people can see, because I think there is an opportunity for us to do something a little bit different in the world of property, to create something that's a little bit more special and valued. But to be valued, and for us as investors to invest in it, we've absolutely got to know that we're going to generate the sorts of returns that make it worthwhile. If it was just a flight of fancy, what was the point? The reality, however, is this will drive superior returns, and I will continue to come back and present numbers and statistics, because the more folk it encourages to think about their product from a customer's perspective, because it produces a higher financial performance, the better the products we will collectively create, the better that is for the markets we serve. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Luke. I think we all agree.